My name is Smita Gupta. I'm part of Agami. We have Sachin, who's the co-founder of Agami here, Rashika, who's from Agami as well, Saurabh, and we're one of the partners in the OpenAI mission. The OpenAI mission works to advance access to justice using AI. And we try to push the boundaries of how AI can be used. We do this by creating a huge community of collaborators. We have ThoughtWorks, Prathamesh, Aman, other folks from ThoughtWorks here, National Law School Bangalore, XStep, of course, Rohini Nilikani Philanthropies. And our mission is essentially to do two things, right? First is to build a community of legal AI experts and enthusiasts and people, innovators working in this space. So this is really the perfect setting for us. And we've done this by creating opportunities for innovators and makers to come together and build together, right? Because lawyers and technologists also often do not understand each other's language. Both can be really jargonistic fields. And so to be able to meet in the common ground, get the problem posers and the solution providers together, which is exactly what we're doing here. And in order to do that, we realized that innovation, we have to lower the barrier to innovation in the country, right? And for that, we need some foundational building blocks. Until 2 years ago or 1.5 years ago, those foundational building blocks did not exist. And what they really look like is, okay, we have the presentation as well. Sounds good. Yeah, so I'll just introduce this. Can we go next on the slide? So the foundational building blocks, what they looked like until 1.5 years ago were being able to read a judgment in a way that makes sense to every single citizen, right? Being able to summarize it, structure it, and understand every entity in it. So the slide really does not talk about what I'm saying here. But what we have done in the last 1.5 years is build some open source models, benchmarks, technologies that can actually aid in this understanding of the legal text for us. And over and top of that, we can build a lot of solutions. But next slide, Saurabh, I'll just start from there. What we have here is we realize that we talk about judgments. It's such a, like JB was saying, there are going to be lawyers in this room. But I'm pretty sure, just to show of hands, how many are lawyers in the room? Wow, okay, I can count them on, wow, that's amazing. Sorry? Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so that's the entire room, right? Exactly. So we are working in justice. We moved away from law a little bit and we've come to the area of justice. Can anybody guess what's happening in this image here? Just shout out. Absolutely, yes. That's the preamble. And on the right, this guy is saying, peace, victory, what's happening there? Sachin and Saurabh don't answer. I know you know the answer. Hey, that's amazing. Yes, that's actually. Yeah, but I mean, great beginning. Okay. So what's actually happening here is this guy is saying, yes, I want 2 lakhs. Right? Because there is a language barrier, but what does ODR or online dispute resolution, digitization of the court processes, this is what it allows. It breaks that barrier of access, right? Next slide. What we realize that when we go from law to justice and we start looking at probing issues of, do Indians actually have legal aid? Do they have access to legal awareness? Has pendency, is it becoming better? And when we do this, we also talk about the justice needs. Next slide, please. The legacy framework that we've always believed in is that courts will deliver justice, right? You have to rely on the governments for all sorts of legal access, legal aid, awareness, entitlements. And of course, lawyers are the ones who will actually be our saviors. But does that really happen? Next slide, please. We've realized that the courts are overburdened and we've tried to solve that by getting more judges, which also we're not being able to do. Can we reframe that question a little bit? Can we see how do we reduce the burden of courts? Or do we have to ask a very different question? Do we take justice outside the courts, which is what we're doing with ODR? Government is unreliable. How do we invoke the agency of citizens, of CSOs, of people on the ground working for the communities? Lawyers are costly, inaccessible, but can we ignite the agency of legal experts in the community as well? Next slide, please. When we were asking these questions, we were sort of reframing the problem statement that the law and justice ecosystem faces, right? We realized that we have to come up with a new framework. We have to capitalize on the power of the grassroots. We have to capitalize on legal tech, communities, enterprises. We have to find those bright spots within the government, within the judiciary, civil society. And while we're doing this community building and mobilizing activity, we also have to see what is that lever which can really connect all of these folks to actually change the justice ecosystem, right? And that's why we realized that maybe let's try AI. Next slide, please. So what I started with when we were reframing the problem, asking these questions, we thought we'll start an open mission called People+AI, which is aimed at developing a lot of open source models, open source softwares, and then using AI to actually build this community.
Artificial intelligence boom, if I were to sort of put it like that, we have also refined it. So now we also focus a lot on like safety, moderation, and those aspects of AI. Something that I just wanted to call out. But largely our mission remains, how do we get like lot more makers to be building justice solution? Let the 1,000 flowers bloom, right? Like almost that philosophy.
To actually make justice lead AI. Like so, we were also very keen that it should be a track, because you don't see it, right? You see education, healthcare, mobility, you see that. Justice. But if you don't do that, it's always incremental. If you can look at it differently and say, no, for this, let us lead. So then you have to let go of the old baggage. You can't say, how does the summons process happen more effectively? You have to say, do we need summons at all? How does the resolution, a dispute get resolved? You have to ask, can the dispute be stopped altogether? So there is a shift in looking at the problem first. That's why the reframing that Smita and Saurabh were talking about becomes critical. You can't come in with the baggage around how things have been. Otherwise, you'll get the same answer +1.
Thanks, Sachin. Can we get another mic so that anybody who wants to speak up can? Yeah, next slide. So as I was mentioning, the last 1.5 years, we've been working with the community to build some of these foundational blocks so that innovation barrier can be lowered. I'll just go over a few of these. We've built the NER, Named Entity Recognition Model, which is currently the global best. And what this means is if you have a judgment, we have a on Indian data. It's global best on Indian data. If you have a judgment, you can identify what are the different entities in a judgment, court name, petitioner name, lawyer name, stuff like that, and be able to actually get all that tagging instantly. I think there's a slide on that somewhere. We'll get to it. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is all open source. Yes, it's all public data. Yeah, there's a URL, happy to share. So that's NER. Indian Legal BERT, which has about 58,000 downloads per month. So this has been done by IIT Kharagpur and professors there. What they've actually done is created an Indian legal language, right, which really did not exist before because we were relying on English language, but the jargons, the different terms, the actually English terms that actually come up get missed out. So yeah, that's some of the work that has been done on AI models. When we come to industry, how are these foundational technologies really being leveraged by the innovators, by the makers in the ecosystem, right? So you see something like Asama, which is working on online dispute resolution, right? It has really led the charge on getting lok adalats, getting government bodies to take disputes outside of the traditional court systems. Gramvani, Vijay is here from Gramvani. They've been working on something very cool where the community comes together and pools their resources to actually go to an IVRS, a public community radio, and voice their concerns, and then get response from the community. So really leveraging the power of both community and technology, right? We have a lot of solutions in the e-stamping, e-signing, contract management, intelligent case management. All of these are things which really help with streamlining the entire legal process for firms, etc. When you talk about, so that's community, when we talk about the different people who've come together to build these sort of movements of change. We have Adivasi Janjagrati, who are really working to see how can you use storytelling, video making, all of those kind of things that really bring people together, right? How do you do those to take the story of Adivasi rights forward? We have Foundation for Interoperability in Digital Economy, FIDE, which have been working on a lot of open networks, open protocols for not just law and justice, but in general, the information ecosystem. So yeah, this is sort of an innovation landscape, and yes, a very brief innovation landscape. We are limited by what we know as well. So this is just a really small nugget of it. Next. So this slide, what we've tried to do is come up with what can AI really do, right? We all have the problems. We all know what we struggle with daily. But let's take a few stakeholders. Maybe we can do legal researcher, right? Because a lot of us in our daily work, even if you're lawyers, law students, whatever, we all do some amount of legal technical research. What are the repeated tasks that a legal researcher has to do, right? They have to go really deep into an area of law. They have to read a lot of academic writings. They have to write a lot of academic stuff. They have to do a lot of analysis, interpretations. Now, because these are repeated, because they're happening so often, and they're being done by so many of you, they're complex, and they require a lot of data, right? So 4 components: complex, scalable, lot of data, lot of humans, right? All of these things make some space for AI to penetrate. What can AI do here? So what I was talking about, right? The NER or the entity recognition or the judgment summarizer, legal text summarizer models, they can basically help with coming up with the analysis and interpretations. They can help with writing of the law, or of the analysis. Automated classification. We were speaking with a researcher who's working on tax cases, right? And she's trying to come up with under which section are most cases litigated, right? Which is the most litigated section of the Indian Tax Act. Now that's a big one, right? That's not an easy analysis to come up with. But with some amount of classification, some amount of entity recognition, you can actually see in a judgment or in 1,000 judgments, let's say in 2 years, which are the sections which are most referred to. And just by having this level of analysis of metadata, you can come up with some interpretation. So this is just to say, this is just a chart of what are the repeated tasks that are being done by using a lot of data, by a lot of humans, and how can AI help. Next. Yes, so this is the entity recognition that I was talking about. So you see here, this is MOC Act, this is statute, this is the date, 18th October, this is a geopolitical entity, unlawful activities. Prevention Act is a statute, IPC, case number. So it's so this URL is publicly available. As soon as you input any text of the judgment or a URL of the judgment, you will basically be able to see all the entities within it. Next. So how did this happen, right? This is very cool. We've been working on it for 2 years. We leveraged the power of community of law students across the country. We had almost 200 law students come together and actually read a lot of judgments and annotate them. Right, what Abhishek was saying, we need data annotators. They did a lot of work in actually understanding how do you read a judgment, because if you see an Indian judgment, it runs into 200 pages, but there's really little structure there, right? Facts are somewhere, arguments are somewhere, you can't really make a lot of sense of it. So we conducted a program where we had students actually go through a certificate course where they understood how legal judgments, legal text really works. Then they went through an entire process of calibration, annotation, and Prathimeshan and Aman. Kudos to them. They've sort of led the charge on that. And we've been able to come up with a model which has 90% accuracy on average. Yeah, so this is, just wanted to give you an insight into what the MOOC or the micro open source course really looked like, right? There was an overview of the mission and what does the typical structure of a judgment look like? Why do we need the structuring of judgments? And then sort of go into the details of how do you identify which sentence is a fact or which sentence is an argument, which is analysis, so on and so forth.
By the way, like one of the things that we gained out of this exercise of like engaging with 250 students is actually Smita. So she was one of our first volunteers to sort of be, doing this work. And now she has been pursuing like the whole work around AI, whatever we do from the judiciary side and the citizen side, like a lot of work is being led by Smita. So sometimes, at least like one of the key learnings for me has been that sometimes in these projects, when we include your community, right, like it's not a good to have, it's a must have. You will find many more like charged up allies in your mission than, you otherwise would have a chance to. But sorry, just wanted to call it out.
Thank you. Yeah. 100%, and we had a process around that. So what we did was, I hope everybody heard the question. Yeah, so he essentially asked, what about subjectivity in annotation of legal text, right? Because somebody might disagree with something. So we had a process where there was a duplicity of 3 in each document that was being annotated. Along with that, if there was even 1 or 2 people disagreeing with an annotation, we had an adjudication process where we had identified some legal experts who would go over that and adjudicate. And we had also recognized some high-performing students from within this cohort to be the project coordinators. So they would then become the adjudicators and take the decision then. Yes. So we had law students from more than 20 states. So it was widely distributed. For one of our models, we also had practicing lawyers, legal experts, legal researchers, a LAMP fellow to actually come in and do the annotations and give their inputs on which sentences can co-occur, etc. Yeah. So on that, 2 things. Firstly, if you go to the Supreme Court website or e-courts website today, you will see a lot of the Traffic Motor Vehicles Act. There is virtual courts, not AI judges, but there are virtual courts which are happening, right? So really reducing the burden of the courts by reducing physical presence. So that's one way of reducing burden. But the other part of almost AI judges coming in, that's not possible today. And we should be thankful for that, right? Even large language models that are there, they are reasoning models, but they're not sentient, as opposed to some people who are creating that rumor, right? So they can create some stuff, they can aid you, assist you. So think of you go for an ultrasound, right? You get a report. Now imagine if you say that is all. There's no doctor after that. You can't read the report and understand everything on yourself, but that AI can help with quickly generating that report, giving you a summary of the judgment, giving you the entities from within a judgment, structuring it. And then it's on the human, it's on the expert, subject matter expert to actually take from it what they will.
AI and different topics, but my question is if we can train an AI to become an expert, for example, on intellectual property rights, and then it could, it can pass on judgments, right, on really small cases that are below some cadre that might not require human involvement.
Yeah, this is working. So now just quickly responding to your point, right? I think from where we are today to what you're sort of articulating, there's many steps that perhaps is valuable to do, right? In some ways, I think what AI is most valuable in law, and I echo your sentiment that there are times in history where there's a Lenin quote, right? There are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. And in some ways, the juncture we are in legal AI in India is where there's a sort of inflection point and significant amount of improvement is happening. And the first area where I think value will be created is that stat you had, that 66% of cases are linked to land. That is a perception survey done by Daksh, right? As a country, and the first step of solving a problem is understanding the nature of the problem. I don't think we know exactly what percentage of total cases, right? The day that number changes, which I've seen on many decks, from 66% to 58.37, right, and split across multiple states and all that, is when we know that as a country, we've got a real understanding of what kind of disputes are clogging the courts. And that, I think, is the first sort of checkpoint in the AI journey for India, where a legal AI journey for India, where we will see real value. Once we have an understanding of what are the categories of cases, then and we will be able to sort of then create, these kind of cases, then what in the act is causing these kind of changes? Can we have a procedural change in what comes? The state appeals many times than it should. I mean, all of these issues. But so I think there's a lot that can come out in the public domain with providing the society and the legal community a better understanding. What is clogging up our courts is probably the first checkpoint all of us should.
So, I want to take an approach where I think what you're saying is possible. And hear me out. So why what you're saying is possible is because See, we have a conception of how justice system, we say justice system. Somebody taking a decision on some complex issue. Not true. 98% of matters are not questions of law, are questions of fact. Which means, did you go there or not? If there is a access card data that says you went there, game over. There's no fundamental right article, what, nothing, right? So the thing is that and now, as digital trails grow, people start to do what they were doing offline, online. That means more secure evidence is available to make very quick determinations. Similarly, you could even say, okay, you have transacted with this person. I will give you on the basis of whatever you've done, I'll give you a negotiation model. You act within that model. So what we are going to see in our country is not a one-dimensional thing. Great tool for judge to decide matter. That is a one way to look at it. We're going to see that too. What we're going to see is a massive range of solutions built by different entrepreneurs using the building blocks. So first we have to get our head out of judges taking decisions. We have to get that. That's a paradigm shift. We are on that. Every judge will meet you and say, AI will solve problems. Now, robot judge. So we have to start looking at it as a range of problems. So there's so many entrepreneurs in the room here. There are ODR entrepreneurs. There are which is people working on building systems for resolution of disputes outside. They are doing this kind of stuff. Mediation tool, facilitated mediation tool. The tool already tells you this is this. I think within these two parameters now you decide. So what we are starting to look at these as not solutions, but as building blocks. Because then as an entrepreneur, you get, once you free your mind, and your Vinay, who's one of the leading ODR platforms, he's sitting at the back, you start to think, I could build a pre-arbitration counseling tool. I could build this, I could build that. There's no limit to it. So we have to just get out of this whole robot judge thing. So the short answer to your question is yes, it will happen. But for what categories of things, and all that we'll start to see. Insurance matters, for instance, are within a very clear script. Question of law kahan pe hai? Your knee was broken or not? That is the only question. Did you have pre-existing thing or not? So I feel like let's just expand that. And then automatically we'll see the 1,000 use cases. And what Joseph mentioned was even on the analysis of the system. Yeah. But I think entrepreneurs are myopic people. Entrepreneurs will not even care about how big exactly what is the thing. They'll be like, I'll create a solution, this will solve the problem. Then they'll discover later that the solution should have been slightly different. Myopic, in the sense that they'll act even if the landscape is not totally clear. And they will figure it out. That will happen. Yeah. Sorry, but just wanted to...
Sorry, just 1 second. Okay, let me first set the intention. I'm really happy that we didn't need to take too much effort to basically get you all excited, okay? But what we also want to do is, so the purpose of us coming here together, right? Like, why do we want to spend like 2.5, 3 hours together, right? Especially when we are meeting for the first time, right? I think the intention was that a lot of us like really care about this space. I think there are multiple ideas, multiple solutions that's coming out. I think there are very pertinent questions regarding large language models, AI, bias, safety. Those have to become real, and everyone needs to participate into building of these technologies. That's our best shot at like building something that is useful for everyone, right? So before we proceed further, and I know there are a lot of questions around it, I just want to take some time for all of us to do a very quick round of introduction, right? So maybe we will start from, and I'm just going to name the tables just for my clarity. This is table 1 for me, that is table 2, this is 3 and 4. So we'll go in this order, and everyone in your table, say your name. If you represent an organization, an initiative, a mission, a project, and just one very quick line summary of what you do. When I say a very quick line summary, I really do mean a very quick summary, right? So maybe we can start with you, sir.
And table 5 is the people on the edges.
Yeah.
Hi, I am Amya Paratkar. I am from Pune. I am a product strategist. I like building B2B SaaS products. I work with corporate entities, 2 to 3 year old startups, and out of interest, I also work with think tanks. So far, I've explored working on data privacy, a little bit on legal tech, and here to explore more partnerships and seeing. I'm keen to know what are the next steps OpenAI community is looking up to, after doing all of this?
Hey everyone, I'm Shashank. For my daytime job, I work as a product manager and designer at a startup. On the side, I'm trying to build my own startup, and AI is something which is interesting. I mean, I missed most of the waves in mobile and computers, right? So this is the only wave I can ride. But the part time, what I really actually passionately care about is building a better country. I mean, I think because at some level, that's what ultimately matters to us, right?
Hey everyone, my name is Sadhana. I'm a lawyer by training, but I'm currently a development practitioner, and my area of research is labor market policy and welfare delivery. So I'm really excited to see how AI is going to impact both of these. Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashish Pandey. I am an engineer. I mostly work on backend systems. Out of all the tracks, this was something which I closely relate to. But that's not here. So a lot of my friends are lawyers, so I hear a lot of cases and something like that. That's the only reason. I have watched it 2 times actually.
Hey, my name is Muthu Ranganathan. I'm in product management over the last couple of decades. And one of the things, as a volunteer, I work a lot with government and eGov foundations. So I'm very keen to understand the justice part, not the law part, the justice part for citizens. We want to do a lot on the one-to-one citizen engagement. So I'm here to really explore how AI can help the overall law and justice space. Thank you.
Hey, so I'm Divya. By profession, I work in the IT field. I head the tech delivery for an AI/ML company in Bangalore. But by passion, I actually also run a podcast, and I'm also an author. And this season, I'm actually doing tech for social impact. That's the focus this season. The girl next door. So that's the thing. This season is tech for social impact. Hence, that brought me to this event. But this track, breakout room specifically, because being in the tech field for the last 15 years, I've seen AI in in all other segments, but I've never heard of anything in justice. So purely here for curiosity, I wanted to see how we're breaking this. So yeah, that's a quick thing.
Hi everyone, my name is Smruti Parida. I am the founder of Nestaway and the ex-CTO of it. I think to the point why I am here, I don't know my relation to agreements, dispute resolution, trying to figure out who is right and who is wrong, has taken me 6-7 years to figure out so there should be something better of my time. 2 high court cases on my name against water boards, electricity boards, because we are doing something commercially as a business on a residential place. I think over those period of experience, I have not seen much happening on the justice system, and I really am curious to figure out what's exactly not happening and happening. And I think AI is a big area where I think things should be moving much faster than what it is now. Thank you all.
Hey everyone, this is Naresh. I am a tech lead engineer at Setu, which is a fintech company. I mean, the main reason I'm here is actually, I think 6 years back I watched a documentary of Aaron Swartz, and then just really went into the idea of activism using computing and the internet. And I think I've been following that here and there for quite some time now, but I think the last 6 months I've just been obsessively reading a lot about law and justice, journalism issues everywhere. What are problem areas, understanding all the things that have already been done. So I was hoping that today would be another step in just understanding the space. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Avinash. I represent SAS Bhumi. I'm here because I volunteer for EggStep. I'm trying to build the community over here, and I've also built that community for SAS founders out here. The reason I joined this hall was because of that gentleman. I loved your pitch, so I thought I'll just be here to support you. It's a great job. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi everybody, my name is Supradeep. I work as a product manager at Ola Electric, looking at range prediction and voice commands. Here, just curious about this, how AI is working in the law and justice sector. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Meghna. I am just a ex-volunteer in iSpirit who was working on democratizing access to credit. Now in a founding team with my ex-boss in Flipkart, Binny, looking to build a solid market player on all the open blocks you guys are building towards disrupting the legal service delivery. So please come talk to me if that interests you.
Hi everyone. I'm largely in the impact product space, in the social justice and governance work. I work with this organization called Video Volunteers. We largely work with the communities across 200 districts in India. Our work has been also with active citizens, individuals from the community who work for the community. And a lot of the impact products that I work on or try to work on is for them. They are, so there was an interesting stat that was shown, only 2% are able to access or even accessing law justice. A lot of other things don't even reach there. They're just in the community it dwells down, right? So I think active citizens are doing some very interesting work in the ground for the community. My interest in this space, I'm part of the OpenAI as well, which is a community of makers and innovators trying to work with AI. I don't have a tech background. I don't fully know about AI, but exploring how we can use it for helping the active citizens that we work with on the ground, right? Super excited to see you all. It was interesting to see there's a lot more makers and innovators, not only lawyers here. Thank you so much.
Hi everybody, I'm Vijay. I represent Gramvani. We build voice-based community tech platforms. We come from the perspective of communities driving demand. Right, so I think any services, even from the legal rights and justice space, I think we come from the approach of driving demand from communities, but that happens only when communities are better aware of their rights, only when they build a shared understanding, and when information is very contextual to their requirements, and only then can they really drive demand and also demand for accountability from the concerned institutions. So we work a lot on that. So our objective is to reverse the flow of information. And for AI, one of the most critical aspects is what goes in as input, right? Community voices, community inputs are extremely critical to ensure that the input that goes into AI becomes extremely contextual, becomes extremely relevant, is trustworthy, and is also more importantly something that's relatable. And using voice as a medium, we make it much more accessible and inclusive. So that's where we work on. Thank you. And lovely to be part of this wonderful conversation.
Hi everyone, I am Yashaswini. I work with an organization called Nyaya, which is incubated at a legal think tank called Vidhi Center for Legal Policy. At Nyaya, what we do is we provide simple and actionable legal information in a way that the legal information, be it statutes, be it judgments, or any legal laws that impact all of us as citizens, are available to us in very easily comprehensible and replicable formats. Text, digital text, video and audio, and for that I think we work very closely with Gramvani, and the whole objective is to make sure that justice mechanisms, justice systems is no longer intimidating and is no longer estranging to anyone. We try to make sure legal information is within the hands of the people who will be using law, so that they can, enforce them and start demanding accountability. Here to get inspired, which I already am, and of course OpenAI Agami is one of our favorite co-conspirators and love working with them, so just coming here to learn more and see how we can join forces to, as what Naman right? Yeah, said we can make information and justice more accessible and create or create sort of bridges to sort of reduce the stopgaps. Thank you.
Okay, hi, I am Naman and I am the co-founder for Krishi Connect and Dynamic Rocketry. I do really like to work in transformers and computer vision models. So we have built CV models that are used in 10 hospitals to detect melanoma. We have built models that are presently used to teach physics to around class 11 students. We have built models that are used in plant disease recognition, blood patterns recognitions, CRISPR, all of those stuffs. Right now, I'm here looking for a good discussion on AI and ethics and how it should, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Parshuram Joshi. Okay, okay, yeah. Hi, my name is Parshuram Joshi, and I'm a software engineer. I work at a company called Avoma. I'm passionate about tech for social good. Volunteered with iSpirit for a bit. Here to learn more about justice system and if I can contribute in any way. Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Karan Malhotra. My background is in design and marketing. I was building a creative AI automation tool for design automation. Presently I have a show called This is Creative AI, which spotlights AI in the creative spaces, which is art, design, marketing, etc. But also creative use of AI as we see here and in other places. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Samir. I work at Microsoft Research. Before this, I was an entrepreneur for 10 years. I'm very excited about tech and societal impact. So I'm just here to learn what are the hard problems in this space and how I can contribute.
Everyone, my name is Abhishek. I work at Google Research, and I'm here to learn more about this space.
Hi everyone, I'm Tahir Javed. I'm a PhD student in the Department of Computer Science at IIT Madras. I work with AI for Bharat in creating speech models and open sourcing them. And the reason I am here is that we are just trying to see where else we can fit in those speech models, right? Because codes are something where it's a good fit. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sumant. Very similar background. I'm representing AI for Bharat here. I'm a PhD student at IIT Madras. I build these models here to see how they're being used.
Yeah, so my name is Sriram Rajamani. You already heard from me, so I'll keep quiet and listen to all of you. Thank you. I'm with Microsoft Research. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Rashka. I'm with Agami. I work on the Codes project where we examine different case types, look at what are the processes that can be re-engineered, not only integrating technology and AI as is being demonstrated by OpenAI, but also how we can do it differently, something like Naman was talking about. I'm very afraid to stay, but I'm a practicing lawyer in Delhi.
I've already introduced myself. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Sachin. I'm with Agami. And Agami's mission is how do you empower the next generation of innovators in law and justice? Innovation and law and justice are not seen as being going together. So we want to flip that in its head. Our idea is how do we make this a remarkably creative field? Not just creative use of AI in justice, but justice as a field of creativity. So that is our mission, and why we're passionate about the OpenAI mission, which is a collaborative that we're a part of, is because we believe that AI can be that massive creativity enabler for a variety of solutions. And the most important thing for us is to help people connect the dots, because sometimes we have to understand what do we mean by justice field. We say courts, but courts is only 1 out of 10 of legal issues that come up. So first of all, it's much beyond courts. Second of all, justice is only resolution of disputes? No. It is information, it is access to entitlements, it is... So first of all, sense-making, to understand the full gamut of 1.4 billion Indians experiencing access to justice, that itself is the biggest thing. So that is our big mandate. If we do that and sense-make correctly, then we will see the opportunities plant in front of us.
Hi everyone, I'm Aman Tiwari. I'm a data scientist at ThoughtWorks, working with Prathmesh, Saurav, Smita, Sachin in building these AI models. So I'm impressed by how AI can help in legal tech. So that's why I'm building with them these models with them, and yeah, helping the lawyers and judges and all the legal people. Common people will be helped amongst the legal people. Yeah. Sorry. No. I'm also a farmer, and one of the things you say in regenerative sort of practices is
Hi everybody, my name is Madhuri and I recently joined the team with Prathamesh and Aman, and ever since I started working with Agami I'm quite interested in law and justice, and I think I'm here because this might also give me a better purpose of what I'm working on and kind of open new perspective for me.
Hello everyone, my name is Prathamesh. I'm a data scientist at OpenAI. So we try to build some of these components here, and I'm from ThoughtWorks. What excites me here is I think the kind of impact that AI can make in this space is I think very huge. And as Sachin was saying, there are many, and Saurabh was also saying there are so many low-lying fruits, and just super excited to be part of this journey. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Saurabh Bansal. I'm from Ernst & Young, EY. So I work with a lot of law enforcement, intelligence, investigation agencies, a lot of police forces. Not so much courts, I've worked with courts in India and abroad, but my primary work is with intelligence, investigation, police agencies, and we call it police tech. So very interested to see the work which is happening in AI. Some of it I'm seeing, and very interested to see the different perspective which is coming in from a dispute resolution perspective and how to make court efficient. Very excited to be here. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jacob. As you might have guessed, I'm not originally from India. I'm from the US, but been in India the better part of the past 3 years or so. आप लोगों से मिलके बहुत खुशी हुई. And so currently I work with Bandhu. I'm the product manager and COO. Basically, what I do is try to find a bridge between tech and what we do on ground. So Bandhu essentially connects migrant workers to bundled jobs and housing. And so one of our struggles there, so we're across 400 districts, 85,000 users, 15 different languages. So how do you get people to trust technology? And also how do you get them to have access to some of these legal agreements that will kind of serve as a foothold for them when they choose to urbanize in the city, rather than kind of cycling back and forth constantly between the rural and urban. So that's kind of the dilemma that we're facing right now and trying to solve that through AI. So very excited to be a part of this. Thanks.
Hi folks, my name is Joseph. My day job is as a VC at Bloom Ventures, where I invest in fintech and a few other things. But by background, and I have a lot of interest moonlighting in policy and sort of the broader impact space. I tried being an impact investor and a colleague of Tariq's for a couple of years. Figured there's more impact in VC than being Tariq's colleague. but I'm here because I find a lot of this problem a very important problem, and I had the privilege of thinking through some of it in the very early stages with Sachin when I was at ON. And right now I'm sort of really here to be a cheerleader to all the good work all of you guys are doing. And shameless plug, but last Friday I had a op-ed in the Mint just discussing exactly this. So would love to sort of engage more on it.
Well done, Joseph. Hi everybody, my name is Tariq. I work at Omadya Network India. We are an impact fund. I still believe impact investing can work and can have impact. Two parts to my job. One is to actually use technology to just reshape the law and justice system. So I have the privilege of having front row seats to what Sachin and Kan have been doing for the last few years. We are also investors in online dispute resolution. We've invested in something called Resolve 360, as well as Teal, which in fact was a deal that Joseph did on, which helps with land due diligence. So excited to sort of catch up with many of the entrepreneurs building out. The second part of my job is to publicly worry about many of the risks that AI and other emerging technologies might cause, and try and put in the right safeguards. So very excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, thanks for getting this great forum together. My name is Divya Thakkar. I'm at Google Research. I co-lead our AI for Societal Impact work globally. And I'm here mostly because my research area is human-computer interaction, and specifically looking at human-AI collaboration in very high-stakes domains. So I'm here to learn and understand this more. And I used to be a parliamentary debater during undergrad and always used to lose to NLS, so I'm here to get you back.
I know the feeling.
High stakes, so like health, agriculture, legal, those kind. Education, everything where it impacts people's livelihoods.
Hey everyone, I'm Matthew. I run a SaaS startup and I also volunteer with SaaS Boomi. Why I'm here, actually a couple of years back I happened to stumble upon this book called Everybody Loves a Good Drought. It was written in 1996 by P. Sainath. Like, it basically talks about, it kind of paints a story of how extremely poor people in different parts of India, the challenges they face. And one thing I realized is, one of the challenges which all of them face is that they really don't have access to legal services because they can't really afford it. And the legal services kind of end up defeating them in a way. So it's an equity problem, in my opinion. So and then I did a little bit of research trying to understand if the book was published in 1996. Wanted to know if it's actually the same now. But I guess the situation is not very different now. So my motivation was why I'm here is to understand if, all these different initiatives can kind of help build that equity bridge. So I'm just here to listen and learn. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Bharat. I've been working at the intersection of public policy and generative models for a little over 15 years. I'm just here to learn.
Hi, I'm Shankar, founder of the company FRS Labs. Sorry, I wasn't registered for this. I was in the general one. It was very boring, so I just switched here just to see if it's going to be interesting or not. I think it's been good. So far, so good. I think as a founder, you tend to deal with a lot of legal documents. We work with a lot of banks, insurance, telcos, and in particular, we build fraud models and then provide it to law enforcement, police force, and so on. One of the things as a founder we learned, or at least I've learned, is that it took us 10 years to figure out that all legal documents are just a standard template. And then initially, when we started the company, we were just going through every line, and we would argue about it, and then make changes, and then it sort of went on like that. We have over 200 customers now, and all we look at is liability. Are we liable to pay anything if something goes wrong? And then we stop there. So I'm sort of really keen to see, how this is going to change anything that we're doing right now.
Hi, I'm Vinay. Thank you, Sachin, for that beautiful introduction. I work with an ODR startup. For us, AI has been a natural extension of what we already do in the ODR space, because we started with building some foundational blocks, bridging that access to justice gap, where we're actually taking justice to the masses by reaching out to them in their own languages and taking it out on their time, because a lot of people do not have the access to come to courts, either because of their situation or whatever. On the other front, we are working. I'm also co-founder of Terrace, which you might have seen in the courts. We came out with the first transcript for the Supreme Courts. So we're trying to also work there by bringing in transcripts, which is in probably multiple languages, and again improving access not just to what is happening in the courts, but then as a fallout of that, because now a lot of research groups and common people have access to exactly what happens in that space via live streams and transcripts, you open up this whole plethora of possibilities where you can think about how not just justice being reshaped, but how individual laws are framed in the first place with that. So I'm very excited for what OpenAI has to offer in terms of a lot of these building blocks, which will help us, which will really help us with those the foundational areas where you don't have to really invest your time again in building some of these, but also in terms of giving back either the models themselves coming back, because we have a lot of interest being expressed by courts for regional languages. So that way, you have a lot of this data being pumped back into the ecosystem from the legal perspective. And again, a collaborative effort can definitely help open up this space for millions of possibilities. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So I think the introductions are done. We have three more people. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Pankaj Mishra. I'm a journalist and an entrepreneur with Factor Daily. I'm here because I over past few hype cycles I watch the thrill and hype, and then I see everything from services to SaaS and now AI. And I learned from watching the journey from this thrill and hype early to when rubber hits the road, and then paranoia. And then I'm always curious about what's on the other side. And I have watched cohorts of people over past 20 years of doing this in different rooms and settings. And I find myself a seat in these rooms, and I learn and I watch. Sometimes I get scared, sometimes I get thrilled. But I hope I am able to translate all this into stories that will travel for people who can't find space in a room like this. So that is why I'm here. Law and Justice, I got baptized with Agami and Sachin and his team last year. And I'm still learning it, and I'm here to learn. Thank you.
Hi everybody. My name is Preeta. I am with Ekstep. I volunteer. I think I've met a few of you at the registration desk. Why am I in this room? I kind of thought this was a nice, secluded, away from all the noise room. There were only like 4 people when I came in here first, but happy to meet everybody else, of course. But really, I mean, I just got curious. Sachin and Saurabh and everybody were at our experience center a few weeks ago. So that's when sort of I got to know a little bit about, this whole area, a little bit more curious now. So yeah, hopefully this will be interesting.
Hi, my name is Paul and I work with Sama. We're an online dispute resolution institution, and our big, bold vision is to build a new justice system for India that prizes efficiency and collaboration and is accessible for everyone.
Got it. Now I think the introductions are done. So what are we gonna do, right? Like for the remaining time, I think there are 2-3 things that we need to talk about, right? Like we need to talk about ChatGPT. There is no way that we are here and we are not talking about like large language models, how they work, right? We also have like some of the problem statements where we want to do deep diving, right? And really, I mean, one of the framings that we haven't said so far is that OpenAI is actually a maker space. And what does that mean is that everyone who is basically part of OpenAI is a maker, right? And they make stuff. And that's where we want to distill all of our conversations to, right? Like if you were to sort of, do this, right? Like how would you go about it? And at least like from our journey of 2.5 years now, we have basically learned that there are some things which are considered to be like good to have, but like especially in high stakes use cases, right? Open source is not a good to have, it's a must have in some sense, right? And that's why like a lot more people knowing what really goes into making some of these technologies happen, and then opening it up for a lot more people to participate, not just from a data annotation perspective, but like also bringing on the voices, or like even setting expectations of what AI can or can't or should or shouldn't do, right? To give you one example, right, like how Joseph was basically saying, you go to an income tax court, right, and then you ask them what is the most contested section in past 20 years. They will not be able to give you that number, right? But suddenly now you have a named entity recognition completely built in India, completely open source, peer-reviewed paper, puts a 94% accuracy on the test data, and now you suddenly have something that has been vetted by a lot of people, right? Like, and the fundamental question around the trust and things like that, that can be addressed by that openness, right? So what we will do right now is not really look at this slide. We will actually deep dive onto the problem statement. But there is a section, the next time we convene in this room, we are actually going to go deep into large language models, how they are built, what is instruction, what is the role that community can play, and what is the role that the users themselves can play in some sense, right? But that is something that we will keep for the end, just so that we are able to sort of use this time much more productively. I think we have a lot of ideas that has already been coming up, right? Like, but like, how do you sort of like, this will be a way for you to see like what goes from an idea to a very quick MVP, right? And then eventually what we can do is like take it outside and then figure out like how, different perspectives can be added to make it into either a product or an initiative or something of that sort. So I'm just going to request, just check if you have access to a sticky on your table? Just give me a thumbs up. And you all have access to a pen. You guys don't have access to a sticky? Yeah, just figure out. We had a very grand plan, right? Like we had a very grand plan of like doing some like room sensing activity and things like that. But I think what we are going to do is like we are going to straight away jump to the matter that we have right now. So there are 4 problem statements that we have put it out here, right? 3 actually. Thank you so much. Smita, do you want to talk about these?
So today we wanted to focus a little bit on these three statements, right? First is access to legal information and services in both formal and informal structures. What that means is how the NALSA is working right now, how e-Seva Kendras operate, how CSOs, NGOs, how are they empowered and engaged to actually ensure that legal information and services are reaching the last citizen. So that entire ecosystem, how do we look at it a little bit differently? Second is access to and grievance redressal in government entitlements and schemes. So we know that we have thousands, and as per one report, more than 20,000 government entitlements, welfare schemes in the country, both at the central and the state level combined. How are they really reaching the citizens? What are the layers in which the problem is breaking? Is it an awareness issue? Is it a language issue? Is it just not being able to access and not having the actual lever to do some grievance redressal in those areas? The third is access to quality dispute resolution systems, solutions in private and public domain. So when you look at how are dispute resolution practices being evolved, right? Both outside the court when you talk of ODR and within the court when we think of digital processes and digital courts. So these are some just sort of seeding ideas for you to think about when you go a little deep into how do you look at these problems from the context of how AI can help, how communities coming together can help, how both can help work together to do that. And there will be some prompts that we'll keep giving you, but for now I think we'll give out some material for you to start working on as a group. So your group is essentially the table that you're sitting at. Basically write down first, who are the stakeholders? How do you think, what's the status quo? What are the problems right now? What are some of the potential solutions? How can you use AI? So on and so forth.
We will basically let it emerge. So the first thing that you have to do is so essentially just raise your hands if you are one of these like personas, if I may, right? Like if you're a technologist, just raise your hand. Okay, so we don't have that balance on that particular group, so maybe some technologists can go there. If you're a lawyer, just raise your hands. Okay, so maybe you guys also want to spread out a little bit, right? Everyone else just spread out evenly. Yeah, thank you so much. But really the idea is now go back to your desk, right? Like that there is a little bit of balance in terms of like technology and people who understand law and justice. There are obvious problems that you yourself see fit either to solve or something that you relate with, right? So we are going to give you a timer and we'll probably play some music if we can. But yeah, here's what you have to do. Guys, just quickly, let's take 30 seconds and take the seats. हाँ ठीक है आधे घंटे में यही करना है हाँ okay I'll say okay guys everyone can I have your attention? Yes, okay, so it's we are actually going to be doing a sprint. Okay, it's 1 o'clock, it's actually 2 minutes to 1 o'clock and we have 30 minutes, right? So first thing that we will do is, so we have to be very timed, right? And how will we be timed? I will tell you when you have to basically stop writing and start speaking, things like that, right? So the first thing that you have to do is like take the sticky notes, ensure that everyone has one. Just write down the problem statements, taking a little bit of cue from here or like something that you have seen in your personal life. Either write a problem that you relate very closely with or write a problem that you are really keen to solve with. Either you relate with it or you are really keen to solve with it. Pen it down onto the sticky in another 1 to 2 minutes, right? Discussion is absolutely allowed in case you want to talk to a person sitting next to you and get some ideas. Please feel free to do that. So in next 15 minutes, we need to basically not need to, but like, whatever is emerging from the group, right? Like if there are a couple of problem statements, ideally one, but like if, there are two like really strong problem statements that's emerging, take the moment to write it down on chart paper. But before you do that, spend next 2 minutes to just put your stickies onto the whiteboard, which is next to your group. Okay? While you are doing that, my instructions are not done yet, but like while you're doing that, try to organize them, group them together based on similarity. And your time starts now. Okay, I have seen group 1 put the stickies. I have also seen group 3 put stickies. Group 2, are you guys good? I need to see some stickies on the... Oh, you have put it onto the chart. Nahin, theek hai. If it helps, it helps. Sure. Just ensure that this chart paper is on that board. We'll give you a different chart. Not mandatory guidelines. I'm sorry, mandatory guidelines. There are some leading questions for you. So as you consider, the problem or problems that has emerged from your group, do consider these leading questions and have a response to these questions, at least within your group, right? So we have another 10 minutes for you guys to discuss this. You will not get an answer to all these questions, but these are just indicators so that when you're thinking about these problems and solutions, you are able to think of them like more holistically.
And when we come back after lunch, we'll do a share back of your group's thoughts on these.
Okay, everyone, come back. If you can look at... Okay, guys, group 1, group 2, group 3, please sit down. Okay. I just want us to be aware of our time as well, and that's the only reason why I'm being a villain right now. I know there's a lot of exciting conversations. Some of the things that I heard was very interesting, right? Like how there is a nature of adversarial system where you need different opinions, and which is probably like very central to what law and justice could look like, right? And that's why the idea of uniformity is something that you might not want, right? Some other tables I heard that, if a lot more people care about a problem, that problem needs to surface, right? And AI needs to be a mechanism that sort of like puts it out, right? And I think like the conversation that I heard on another table was largely around like how do you sort of, just bring out the data points. How do you just measure stuff in law and justice, right? Like if everything is captured in text data, which is very, very lengthy, and if there are attributes which can be calculated, right? Like how do you really do that, right? So right now it's we are supposed to break for lunch. I'm not going to force anyone to go for that place in case you want to skip it. 1:30 is when we break out. But before we do that, I just wanted to, show and tell a couple of things, right? One of the things that we did over last 2 years is actually build this NER model. And NER model, basically what it does is it takes a judgment. So usually this is what a judgment really looks like, right? And does anyone want to summarize this for... Okay, so I don't know. This is our default actually on the web app. So no one like really played with it. But this is what a typical judgment would look like, right? And if you go on like any of the websites which gives you access to these judgment, like there'll be very few attributes that it'll capture. Why is there such little attributes about a particular case? Because there's a human being who is entering that data and does not have a lot of time to do that for a lot of judgments, right? So they will try to optimize for it, right? What this named entity recognition model basically does is it helps you identify around 23 entities out of a judgment, right? So think about it, right? Like a lot of researchers initially asked for these use cases because they are the ones who would basically go and answer the questions like, what is the most contested section in this particular tax court, right? And there is no way for them to get this data. A lot of practices basically meant that they would have like, 500, 600 judgments, and then they would manually read it and write it down, right? Like what are the different sections that's coming out in these particular cases, right? Having a named entity recognition model both aids the research, but now can be, as like incorporated in data pipelines where once you have the judgment, some of the metadata is automatically created for it, right? And now suddenly you will see that a lot more people have standardized information, which is never something that we started with, right? Like if it's identifying these entities, it's also like in some sense telling you that these are equal entities in some sense, right? Then we had rhetorical roles model, which basically takes a judgment in place, and a judgment typically, I mean, it would be great if judges just filled a form, right? And the judgment was an output, but that's not how it happens, right? Judgments have like a implicit structure to it. So it'll carry facts, it'll carry analysis, it'll carry ratio, precedents that were relied on, precedents that were not relied on, what are the arguments by parties, what are the arguments by the defendants and everyone, right? And usually lawyers or judges really want to go to the substantive part of the judgment, right? They don't, and these judgments can range from like a few pages to few hundred pages for that matter, right? So for example, the part that Smita highlighted, right? Like the rhetorical role model, which is trained, it basically tells you that this is analysis. The other one is actually precedent relied, and if you keep on going down, you will also see what is the ruling by present court. So the last line, which is like with the above observation, this appeal is dismissed. This is the ruling by the present court. So this model basically does that. I'm also very, very happy that this is the baseline model that we had created, and someone actually came and beat our baseline model, right? Like, so we I think released this model last year January, actually, like maybe 1st of Jan itself, right? Like, and we organized something called SEM evaluation, which is where a lot of like AI researchers come and then they try to beat a benchmark with new model architectures and things like that. They actually got a 7-point increase in the percentage. So we were at 78%, and then they added another for rhetorical roles. So for named entity recognition, on the test data, we get like 94% accuracy in identifying them. Yeah, and like it's a peer-reviewed paper that is out there for people to. In fact, like this was also part of the SEM evaluation, where the challenge was to basically beat this benchmark, and we had like such amazing responses. In fact, like the fintech arm of Alibaba, their data science team participated in that competition, trying to beat the NER baseline model that we have, right? And we still stand at 94%, which is the best available today, right? But the idea is not that you have like these exciting models available, but just the fact that lot more people can now participate in building these model architectures, contributing data and things like that, right? There are more demonstrations like this that will come in the second part. When are we meeting again here? Does anyone know the time? No, I am here to tell you that, right? It's 2:45. Okay, what is the time? It's lunchtime, right? And we come back at what time? 2:45, right? Remember your desks, right? The use case that you're diving in, because the next part is going to be detailing it out even more. So the people you are sitting next to, right, just look at their faces once. These are the people who are probably going to have lunch with while discussing this. But on that note, I think we are on time. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you again at 2:45. There are really cool demonstrations, and there's really deep discussion yet to have. Aman is sitting right behind you. He can answer all of that. First of all, really sorry, and thank you so much for being such lovely kids who showed up in the classroom on time at 2:45. Yeah. No, I think it was just like running a bit behind the schedule, and then the lightning talk started slightly late. But I'm glad that we are here 15 minutes late, but we are here. Okay, Smita, what do we do?
We'll start at 4. So the main session will start at 4. So we have 45 minutes. What we'd love for you all to do is whatever common problem statements or themes that you've come up with, if you could go deep into them by looking at some of these leading questions, we'll give you just 5 minutes to sort of refresh what this problem was in your head. And then we'll sort of, I think Saurabh will take us through a little bit of the solutioning.
Cycle of sharing with each group in terms of what were the emerging problems or what is it that they are crystallizing, so that everyone gets a sense of what people are thinking. Okay, so we'll just go this way. Is that okay? Yeah.
All right, so we were about, I think, 7 of us, and I think the others left after food. But eventually we arrived at three problems, two of which kind of overlap. One was the jargon part of it, where for common people, what comes out even when I go and Google something in terms of what is a certain solution comes in a lot of legal terms. And then we have to go back and then see what does that mean and then come back. And it's a little difficult. Pretty much like, I'm sure a non-tech person will have the same problem in the tech world. So one is translating those jargons into a much more, say, a fourth standard kid or a fifth, or at least, early 20 person is able to understand in terms of what is it. Second is about the information access, more around the lines of what are the options that we can have in case we have a potential problem, some legal issue, something I need an advice on. Currently, we only rely on lawyers or some friends who are in the legal field, right? So if there's some place where we can even go and say, hey, this is the situation I'm in, then what are the possible options I have? What can I approach, which is right, and, different situations, something like that. Now, this is on the downstream part of it. Much larger thing, which obviously involves a lot more stakeholders and a lot more things to change, is more on using data-driven decisions to basically change the policies. Because I think we all inherently agreed that our laws in India right now are fairly old. But then if you have to change it, it cannot be a knee-jerk reaction that, okay, in 2023 I'm going to change. You have to have data to back it up, to actually look into the future and figure out what is going to be good laws to define in the next, laws and policies to define. So these are the three things we are going to be hovering around.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, at this point I'm just going to read out, because we voted just before on which of the two questions we're going to focus on. So one is taking a contract and matching the clauses to the ones that applies to existing and new regulations, so nothing is arbitrary. And the other is low complexity disputes, which are high volume, for example, traffics and payments, and wish to explore solutions that can quickly dispense with these.
Yeah. So I think there were two broad themes that three actually. One was around the access issue, being able to understand how to access the justice system more effectively. The second was around, which is what we've been spending a lot of time on, we'll be spending more time on now, is about trust. And the idea is there's a significant degree of information asymmetry on who's trustworthy in India. And the sort of unlock, or the linchpin who can sort of unlock that information, is in the justice system. For example, if you're a B2B sort of trader, you're a business, you've got the ability to sell to 4 different customers, but you don't know which one will pay on time. But that information is actually hidden somewhere within the many cases that's been filed against each of these people in the justice system. So this is just one example, but there are many such examples. What it ultimately solves for is that there's a trust deficit in the Indian economy, which is a function of the suboptimal dispute resolution system that we have in the justice system. This is a mitigant for it. So if you have a clear understanding of who's a good party, then it might not go into a dispute, and therefore, you can sort of subvert your otherwise inefficient justice system.
Awesome. Any questions for any of the groups at this point in time? Anything that you are curious about?
Yeah, it's actually. I lose a lot of people in this argument, and I'm still trying to figure out how best to form this. Yeah. So, okay. So there is this idea of information asymmetry, market for lemons, right? And it's a very established idea. The economist's name is George Akerlof. He got the Nobel for it. The way it applies in India, for example, is, say you're looking for a house, right? Lemons problem. But ultimately, the lemons problem, what is the solve for it? You need to know if the counterparty is trustworthy, because the justice system is not allowing you to sort of solve the dispute quickly. But if you know if the counterparty is trustworthy, then you're more likely to enter in the transaction, right? And while in a single transaction, it might seem like a small problem, at a system level in India, what it does is it creates market breakdown. Supply leaves the market. For example, people leave their homes vacant, right? Because they don't want the risk of, they're not sure who's a trusted party they can rent it out to. And if they rent it out to, they might not be able to possess it back because the dispute resolution mechanism is broken. So what if there was a way, this is an individual example, but what if there's a way for me to know how trustworthy you are as a renter or whatever, tenant, right? And that's really, and for businesses, we were thinking business first, right? Because most of the valuable information about businesses are in public domain or statutory domain. Your tax, your MCA filing, yeah.
So yeah, you guys have the chart paper, you guys have your entire team. The objective is very simple. Whatever you guys have basically come up with, 1 or 2 problems. This is the one. No? What do you want? Maybe we'll just like do this thing and then later. Yeah, so you guys have your chart paper. The idea is just take this chart paper as like a canvas that someone can see and get a feel of, 1, what is the problem you want to solve? 2nd, how are you thinking about it? No one is expecting you to really solve the problem right then and there on the paper, but it will be really good to have, like thought out things there. We were becoming very ambitious and we actually thought like we'll do a prototyping right here, right? Like some tech prototyping maybe. But we will leave that for now, and we will probably position ourselves to have like a lot more deeper conversations around AI, ethics, biosecurity, safety, all of those things. But before we go there, you guys have the problem statements, you guys have the chart paper, you guys have the pen, you guys have the group. Just start fleshing things out on the chart paper. In case there are any questions, I'm very happy to answer. You guys have 10 minutes. Okay, start.
Can we poach from tables?
No.
I like the no and guy. I'm saying, is anyone...
If you guys want to, yeah.
Is anyone passionate about the trust question? You can come here and you can also recruit.
I guess there's like very strong group bonding, that has already happened. As I can sense, like that joke hasn't landed that well, but
participation certificate.
Scratch stand-up comedy from potential career path.
yeah. That's why I do it for free in these events. But JB needs to know that how many lawyers are there, right? Like so that he doesn't confuse with LLMs. But really, this is what the story is, right? Like in summary. It was ODR Forum, International ODR Forum happened for the first time in India on actually 14th of March. And the reason why I remember this is like, this is the same time as the event was going on. We went there and with all confidence, we spoke about large language model, we spoke about OpenAI work, and 15 minutes later, we were outdated, right? A new language model had come, a new paradigm had come, right? And really, 5th November is when ChatGPT was launched, then Open Assistant came. And for all of you, right? Like, when I was going through this timeline, one thing that stood out to me is that, I did not have the right timeline in my mind. I think I picked up stories very sporadically and started to piece them together, right? But if you see this, right, like as soon as ChatGPT sort of came in, Open Assistant, which is a completely open source initiative to build a ChatGPT equivalent in open source, that started, right? Then you saw Bard, then you saw Llama, something that is like significantly smaller. Then you saw like Stanford Alpaca. Actually this one is wrong. And 14th March, GPT-4 was launched. And yesterday, Bloomberg GPT was launched. So Bloomberg took 40 years of their data. They trained a large language model. I don't know what it does today, but like we'll hopefully discover it, right? But since 5th of November till 31 March, right, like a lot of things have changed. For example, the cost of compute, right, like for these like large language models, they have gone down by 90%, right? Like, so if someone was doing some costing around, like what would it take, for a chatbot to reach like a population scale, right? Like the costing that they would have done in January would be, they would save a lot of money actually by this time, right? Like, so that's the pace of growth that's happening. Second thing that we have seemed to figure out, right? Like there is a problem in AI called alignment problem. And there are like a lot of variations of it. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but like we have figured out that reinforcement learning is one way in which we are able to tilt or align the models to perform certain things, right? Um, Another breakthrough that has happened is actually a large language model that can sit in your computer, right? Do you guys want to see a offline large language model? We have like the live, which I don't know how many of you basically know about it, but you can actually have like a large language model sitting on your laptop, right? So if I disconnect from internet, right, it'll still work, it'll still respond, right? Yeah. So I basically asked this large language model, who are you? And it basically says I'm 24-year-old web developer from India, currently based in Netherlands. I enjoy building things with code, designing websites. This is a 6 billion parameter alpaca model, right? And so think about the implications when bunch of these technologies basically get so shrunk that they can independently sit within your device. And these are the changes that has happened in like last 5 months or so, right? Sorry. Oh, it's okay. I don't need that. I just need the next slide, right? So when we think about large language model, and there are a lot of things that that people speak about. We specifically wanted to talk about like what is the work that human beings are doing when it comes to like large language model. And really, one of the things that stood out to us was like the self-instruct. For those of you who do not necessarily come from AI ML world, right? Like what you really would be wondering, how is it able to do all of these amazing things, right? So there is an idea of like a self-instruction. So you basically provide some seed tasks which generate some more tasks, and there is a method to this madness, right? If you see like all the inner circles would look like a root verb, and then everything else around that is something that human beings want created, right? Like so, for example, root verb is write, and then you want the AI to write a paragraph or write a story or write a letter or write an essay, right? Like so this is one way to think about what are the different instructions that you want to train this model on. And then what you would do is you would try to prepare a data akin to that, right? And this is one of the reasons why these instruct models, right? Like we talk about ChatGPT and a bunch of these things, right? Like instruction is really something that is standing out in the way these models basically behave. At the end of the day, these are statistical model, flipping out the next word, next word, next word. But to bring some sense to that, this is one way in which that is happening, right? People have experimented a lot with generating this data out of GPT-4 itself, right? But if you see, right, like the nature of all of these root verbs and things like that, they are essentially, very generic, and that would look very different in a closed domain like law and justice, right? One of the big works that needs to happen when we are thinking about large language models specific to a particular domain. So, for example, Bloomberg GPT that got launched yesterday, right? It is meant to be very, very finance specific, right? Like, so if I ask, like, I'm a farmer, I want a government scheme. No, I don't know, right? Like, so these domain specific language model, they require a lot of work in just framing what it is supposed to do, what it is not supposed to do, and how it is supposed to perform, right? And the idea is that if you have like sufficiently smaller number of these instructions given, the large language model itself is so capable that it will basically like replicate bunch of these things, and suddenly you will be like, wow, it's basically working, right? I'm not going to go too deep into it. I'm pretty sure like bunch of you already know. But reinforcement learning is one way for us to penalize the model whenever it basically gives me a response that I don't want. And using this like method of like, penalizing a model, I am able to align the model closer to how I want it to perform, right? So there are two things. One is self-instruction, second is reinforcement learning, right? This is there, right? Like, but where does the whole question around bias, safety, all of these things like really stem from? Right? And it's not too difficult to, observe this, and something that I'm going to show you also, right? In an unconstrained model that has just taken all of the internet, as how Naman was basically saying, right? Like, internet is filled with bunch of information that you may not necessarily need, right? So, for example, I can actually ask it, I shouldn't be doing that, but if I ask it to, like, give me a recipe for a bomb, it'll actually do that. Right? If I ask it to, tell me like how do I steal kittens, which I absolutely don't want to do, right? It'll give me a pathway to do that, right? And that's where a lot of things, when we say like large language models are going to be amplification, right? They are going to amplify they are going to amplify human intent. And then it basically becomes about, how do we align as a society to come up with things that these models should or should not do, right? Like something that you can trust on, right? And that's why like, there are three very key questions that we have to answer with respect to large language model, right? Like one is the whole idea around like safety. So when we think about safety, it's not like that the large language model is going to come and like, it'll start to attack you. In certain cases, actually, people have also said that, large language models scolded me, right? Like those issues have also come in, right? Like those are violent behaviors. You don't want that. But more than that, you don't want it to be telling people how do you create bombs, right? You have to figure out data. I think for India, datafication is happening parallel to how AI world is sort of like growing, right? Like, so we are in a very interesting state. In a lot of other contexts, you have a lot of internet data. One of the reasons why Indian languages still seem to be like one of the problems where you do not have a lot of language models which can do like ASR, TTS, these kind of things, is fundamentally because you do not have voice data, right? Like, and when the internet was invented, a lot of things happened in English, and that's why you see bunch of these models also perform really, really well in English, right? Bias, right? Again, so, I think Rahul said in the morning, right? Like, the third thing actually borrows from the second thing, right? Like, second thing is what we are generating. We need to be as responsible about like what data we want AI to amplify, and then think about how do you de-bias it, right? Like, so the idea or the notion around that large language model is a cake that you put into a microwave oven, you take it out and then you eat it. It's not like that. There is a constant work that needs to go into making that happen. Who is going to do that work? The choice is everyone's, right? Like either a community can do this, right? Either we can all align on something and constantly monitor it as a community so that we have that trust on that AI, or it can be done by large tech companies or like smaller tech companies, right? In the paradigm of that a large language model can sit in your laptop, right? Like how that's going to work is a question that every single person needs to answer, right? So I'm just going to take this opportunity. I hope like the chart papers are done so that we have something to present there. But like really at this point of time, there are three things that we want to talk about these. And there are like more paradigms, right? Like you can have constitutional AI where you lay down the ethical principles and the community can align on that. But really what we need to do is like set the expectations of what AI should and shouldn't be able to do, at least in a closed domain like law and justice, which is very well, at least like read and understood in that sense, right? Like than the general world sense. I'm going to pause now. But anyone who has any burning thoughts, and I'm going to actually invite you also to share from your perspective, Rajmani sir. But like anyone who has any thoughts on like bias, safety, and data, specifically for law and justice domain, right? Like where the bread and butter is actually text data, if you look at it, right? Like any thoughts that can spark conversations, I'm actually looking for that. So I'm just going to pause here. Any thoughts? Very happy.
No, my question is there almost a negative list where we say, look, hey, look, we're very early in the development of this, and at this point of time, maybe these use cases are too high stakes, and therefore we're not going there, and we draw those boundaries, but anything around that we can sort of continue to play around and see what happens. So that was one thought, and harms will occur, right? And how do we document and talk about it, and how do we constantly learn from it? So.
I was inspired by the pie chart you made of the structure of thinking, right? The task structure. And I was thinking, like, and Sam Altman once said that why would we worry about? Maybe we can teach the AI to be the best racism detector, right? Like we teach the AI to look at itself and say what is racist, what is not. In the same way, maybe evolving first a dynamic construct for safety, for bias, for these things, so that this evolving this construct which it itself participates in evolving, and then we can keep upgrading that construct. But maybe that's one piece of this. Like, can we develop a construct for what is safety, what is bias, and then from there go and an MVP of sorts. An MVP of sorts, yeah.
This is just a framing of a thought. Often enough, when something new happens, the instinct is for somebody else to come and regulate it, right? And then there is always this complaint that technology is ahead of law and law is not able to catch up and all of that. In this space, what if the creators and the community of the space call out what those should be, not in terms of regulations, but in terms of just being transparent of what is the principles of, to say these are the principles we will follow, but also to call out, these are the things that could go wrong. In some way, then you are acting a little bit more responsibly and nobody else is coming in to judge. You're putting out a way of thinking as well, because to me it feels like more than anything, when we talk of AI and data, there is no way anyone else is going to catch up in thinking, to come and try and regulate it. Whatever will happen will be to shut it down. And that's also fine, but why not lead the way in changing the paradigm of the idea of regulation? So I wanted to sort of put that thinking on the table.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, just off of that, I mean, I guess you have to think about like what is the incentive for whoever's building this model to self-regulate, right? I mean, businesses currently, like, if you ask them to self-regulate, they'll say, yes, I do it. And then down the line, they'll have problems, right? So there has to be some kind of, I don't know, like, I don't want to say regulatory authority, but just like a framework that other people can use to test this with, like, for whatever model it is, and say, okay, you know, it works on this standard, doesn't work on this standard. Then everybody can see that. So that's kind of the idea of making open source, right?
Hey, sorry I missed the slide, so I don't know if my question is not relevant. But the thing that I would like to bring about is, so always when we compare about with how good AI is, right, there's a baseline of how humans perform, and as soon as an AI does better, we say AI is better. For example, recognizing a cat versus dog, AIs are better than humans because they've done tests to do it, right? Similarly, if there's like a call which a judge makes, right, and it's a very subjective call or whatever, right? So there's absolutely no way to get a baseline on how humans have performed. So if let's assume there's some world where an AI is built, how can you even evaluate if that AI is better than what a human would do? I mean, I don't just, yeah, question.
Just building off of what I think Tariq said about what could be potential blacklisted items, I think that while all of these concerns seem like concerns that could be relevant for anything, not only law and justice. I think what differentiates law and justice is the fact that it affects life and liberty of people. And if we could take those away no matter what, because the idea is that when there is a human being involved, there's some amount of application of mind of another human that this person no longer deserves to be a part of society for a particular period of time. And just taking that entire gamut out of it, I think would take away a lot of the concerns with respect to bias or even data that you have. Because if you're just looking at commercial matters or civil matters, then data is far more easily available without the chances of it being colored.
Yeah, I think, again, just going back to the point about saying that, when we are making these, when we talk about creating principles, right? So again, I still see this coming from a very top-down sort of an approach. I mean, it's a very evolving sort of, and we're talking about a spread of topics that, which range from absolutely from life and liberty to constitution to health and every other topic, right? And the stakeholders are not just the educated class. We are talking about a very widespread, right? So we're really talking about the last man standing. How does it really impact them? How are their voices really even considered in this whole decision-making process of what principles, what are the moderation principles, what are the community editorial philosophies that we consider while considering whether this is appropriate, not appropriate? I think unless there is a real inclusive process or a channel where those voices are included in the broader narrative, I don't know how can we ensure that the decision-making process pertaining to these models are as inclusive as possible, right? So I think that's going to be a very, very important factor to be considering when we talk even about principles for these models. Otherwise, it'll go back to the same old problem of, again, tech being developed from a very top-down sort of an approach.
So let me just muddy the waters a bit. So AI is still AI. It's not general intelligence. It can solve problems. It cannot give Plato level philosophy. So whatever biases you see in AI, those are all human biases. All this talk of, oh, I will regulate this, I will regulate that. get people to agree on what to regulate, and then we'll see. These are all human biases. It's just that in AI, racial discrimination, discrimination of the sexes has been happening for centuries, forever. It is just that today, if it happens in one corner of the world, everybody gets to read it in every corner of the world, and then they jump up and down, oh, this is very bad, and then they go out and commit the same offense themselves without realizing they have done it. Okay? So, it is just that AI is shining a light on humans and their tendencies. It's not that you can get people to agree on, oh, these are the right things to do, these are the wrong things to do. That is where the fun will come in. Who the hell will decide? Look at the US. What is happening there? I will say that whatever happened in the capital, somebody will say that was independence, that was right. Somebody will say that was terrorism. Now who the hell will give the instructions to AI on how to train?
So, sorry. No, just one last closing thought I had. So when we talk about biases, we were probably talking about one layer. But increasingly, you know, because AI is being implemented by different companies at different levels, soon by the time it comes to law and justice, I think we'll have to peel through multiple layers in order to reach, I don't know what, that one entity that we can target or whatever. I think that is going to be very, very murky is what I feel. I mean, if we are like sitting down and framing laws or just constructs to sort of regulate or maybe decentralizedly regulate these, I think some thought has to be given to that, because it's not just my AI must be residing on and taking decisions based on some other AI's recommendations.
Joseph, then we will be scolded to be late.
Got it. Just responding to that point, right? I think there are two potential functions of AI in law. The first is as a tool, the second is as a adjudicator of some kind, right? I think the first is a low-hanging fruit, where the single greatest application of AI is arguably in the judiciary in India because of the many things it can unlock. The second is a really long time away from where we are starting, that I think for the purposes of most conversations, the scope of our this thing, it's very unlikely that AI for decision making in the Indian judiciary is likely in our lifetime, right? So in some ways, I think we really need to focus on AI as a tool question. And just a subset of that, one of the things I'd like to sort of, I've often argued for is, there are many feedback loops out of the judiciary that are really missing. One of the feedback loops is the feedback loop between the judiciary and the legislature. When the legislature enacts a law, it has no idea what is the potential judicial pendency or pile-up that law will create. An AI system, which then sort of, in 6 months later, brings that, say, look, you guys enacted this act. Because of this act, this many cases have come in this place for this. And then it can improve the legislation itself. It can change the sort of dispute resolution mechanism in the legislative design. Some lamb fellow sitting and writing that draft has no idea, right? What is the right? There's no information of the right. So that, I think, so in many ways, AI as a tool and not AI as a adjudicator is probably where we need.
Quick one. Yeah, actually, what I found fascinating in this discussion is the following, right? I think tech companies like ours, and I'm sure our competitors as well, we all have something called responsible AI programs. We can't release a product without, there is actually an ether committee that actually looks at how we collect data. There is bias test that is done, and all of that, right? And that we do. I mean, they are not perfect, but I think we try and do that for every product we release, right? But I think what these large language models do is that they enable many people to build AI products just like the tech company. That's the democratization, right? Now the tech companies are not the only people that can build these, right? Many people can build them. And I see two opportunities there, right? One thing tech companies can do is that actually we can make our responsible AI process much more public.
Yes.
So that other people can actually learn from it. And it's good for us because actually then we can invite criticism.
Yes.
And then others, you guys, right? You might be not tech people, but you can follow similar processes and we can learn from each other. That's what it seems like to me.
You have a collective sign belief.
That's a very...
Yeah,
I think we just have to...
We'll take you up on that offer. One person from each
team will be representing the problem statement that you guys worked on.
You. So can the person presenting run right now? Because, justice delayed is justice denied. So please run.
Our food was delayed.